so I'll give you a little bit of my story here in a minute. Career outlook, we're going to look at that. Required licenses and ratings, I'm going to go through this with you as well. The difference between Part 141 versus 61 academies. There's two different flight schools. There's 141 training, there's Part 61 training. We're going to look at both of those, what's the difference and which one may be the best option for you. We're going to look at the cost of training and then also how to fund that, okay, if you're looking like, okay, how am I going to finance this thing? Finally, we'll get down to the selection of a flight academy, recommended training aircraft, in my opinion, what I recommend to be a good training aircraft. We'll look at risk reduction, time building, and finally the importance of networking. So a lot of different things we're going to go through here over the course of the next several hours. I would imagine that I'm going to be coming to you live. All right, so let me start with my story here. My story is the following. I don't know how well you can see this, but this is basically a picture of me when I was 13 years of age. This is Merritt Island Airport. If you don't know where Merritt Island is, I tell everybody just find Orlando and then go straight east basically until you pretty well hit the beach. It's in the Cocoa Beach area, Cape Canaveral, where they launch rockets, okay? So here I am, I'm 13 years of age. The only thing I knew here was I want to be a pilot. That's all I knew. At this point, I had purchased Microsoft Flight Sim 2004 from Target for $49. I remember this vividly. Started flying my desktop sim around on there. Had no idea what I was doing, by the way. I was trying to fly it with a keyboard. I didn't even have a control yoke or a joystick or none of this. I didn't even know that was a thing, okay? And to be honest, I was a bit discouraged initially with my experience flying Flight Sim because clearly I had no idea what I was doing. And then later on, I started to kind of get the hang of it, learning, funny enough, from the John and Martha videos that were from King Schools directly inside of Microsoft Flight Sim. And then I told my dad, listen, I'd like to go to the local airport and learn, let's start taking lessons. So here I am at 13. I make my way to the Merritt Island Airport. I go to Voyager Aviation, which is still there as far as I know. I take my first flight lesson in November 46913, which is a 152 right behind me here. And that's where I did basically my first flight. Again, a little bit of a discouraging experience because I'm 13 and I was overwhelmed, like completely overwhelmed. I hear the radio chatter. I see all these instruments in front of me. To me, it was like, oh my God, this is sensory overload type of thing, right? And then I remember vividly, I told my dad, I'm not really sure that I'm going to be able to do this at 13. And he said, just stick with it, do a couple lessons and see how you feel, So I ended up doing 2 more, and by the end of the 3rd one, I'm like, okay, I think I got this and found my calling, so to speak. So with that being said, I start pursuing my flying lessons at 13 at Voyager Aviation. Now, keep in mind, I'm in middle school at 13. So I'm going to middle school, and I am also doing the flight training. And for those of you that maybe you're watching this and you're younger and you're like, how old do I have to be to initiate the training? Well, I was 13, okay? There's really no minimum age to start. There is a minimum age to fly solo, which would be 16. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But basically, here I am at 13 with a flight instructor, and you can start at any age. Now, to that extent, also, those of you that are later in life thinking, hey, maybe I'm too old to get into this, right? Well, we're going to talk about that too, but the nutshell answer to that, in my opinion, is you're never really too old to do anything, folks, okay? That's just a mental limitation you put on yourself. So you can do it if you want, and we're going to look at career outlook for you in the later years of life as well. So here I am, Voyager Aviation. I'm working with a flight instructor there who was a phenomenal instructor who's now a captain at American. He was going to school at Florida Institute of Technology. He was also an instructor down there. And one summer, he used to live in Pennsylvania. He went home for the summer. He came back. When he came back, he decided he was just going to be teaching full-time at Florida Tech. So I followed my instructor to Florida Tech, and I ended up continuing my lessons at Florida Tech and until I had to move because of family reasons to Seattle, where I finished my later part of my training, commercial multi-engine, over in Seattle. So basically, that's how it all unfolded. But I'm going to share with you also, during this time, I was washing airplanes, and this is part of how I was financing and funding this thing, is that I was working washing planes. I've never really stopped working since this time. And that was an incredible networking opportunity for me because it led me down the line later on to acquire the Metroliner job, which I'll share more of with you here in just a minute. So, and then from there I got into the world of instructing, and later on into the world now where I actually fly. Obviously, if you don't know, I fly for a low-cost carrier based here out of Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, and this was my dream, man, to fly a jet. Now, I always thought I was going to fly a 737 or a wide-body airplane, some kind of Boeing airplane, and that's where, I would primarily, and I've done flights on the Boeing 737, right? But I always thought I'm going to go to an airline and fly a wide body internationally to Europe or something to this extent. And life has taken a little bit of a different path, which I couldn't be happier about. But here I am in front of the A320. And this is currently where I fly at a low-cost carrier, apart from operating a school, obviously, here at One Step Prep Academy. So with that, we're going to now dive into what are the steps that are required for you to become a pilot.